Hello and welcome to or back to my channel. If you've clicked on this video and you wonder if you clicked on chapter 5 by mistake, you did not. I just filmed them on the same day because they're kind of the same thing. And in thinking about it, I think this is the chapter that Michelle actually wanted to write, but considering how big the trans children thing is at the time of writing, she felt she had to get in on that too. So she wrote chapter 5 about how women are different from men and yada, yada, yada. But this is where her real passions lie. I think it's no mistake that this is the chapter that has the most citations. Most, if not all, the citations are about financials because she's trying really hard to sell us on the poor women. They don't know what they're doing. They're being tricked into having an abortion because abortion is, a big money business. In Michelle's mind, it's natural for women to want kids. It's unnatural for women to... Well, that was weird. So she has to explain it away by all that big money being thrown at lobbying to convince women to have abortions. I feel I summed that up a whole lot neater than her whole chapter did, but let us begin. So chapter 6, Defend Life. I have so much to say about that title alone, but is Emily being cute? Yeah, she's being pretty cute. But I will try to save it until Ellie is nuzzling the Kindle. Okay. It's only 4, guys. It's not time for dinner yet. Anyway, defend life. Over 60 million innocent babies have been eliminated by abortion since the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision. It's hard to grasp the enormity of the human carnage that entails, so let's put it in terms your daughter can more easily relate to. 60 million is more than the state populations of California and New York combined. 60 million dead babies is the equivalent death toll of a 9/11 terrorist attack happening every day for 54 years straight. After 9/11, America launched the Iraq War, which cost an estimated $2,007,014 U.S. military lives, as well as another 7,950 U.S. contractor deaths. Interesting to talk about civilian deaths. And yet, every single day in America, a war is waged inside the womb that claims the most innocent and defenseless among us, the unborn. Unlike the war on terror, the daily killing of innocent children does not dominate headlines, appear on nightly newscasts reporting the daily casualty figures, or consume floor debates in the United States House and Senate. No, but in state houses, it does. Please see Texas. Instead, we are expected to go about our days as if everything is normal, but it's not. It's wrong, and it's up to us as parents to teach our children the truth. Life is precious, yet there is a powerful lobby dedicated to snuffing out innocent lives in the womb. It's a monstrous practice mostly based on convenience. I am so over this convenience argument. Yes, Ellie. And there is no moral wiggle room for those who embrace it. My morals feel fine if that's what she's talking about. Yes, my Ellie. Yes, my baby. As Mother Teresa once said during her sainted lifetime mission of mercy for the poor, the greatest misery of our time is the generalized abortion of children. Yeah, Mother Teresa wasn't that great herself, so maybe you shouldn't quote her. President Ronald Reagan echoed her sentiment in a book called Abortion and the Conscience of the Nation, where he explained, "The real question today is not when human life begins, but what is the value of human life?" That is a great question, because apparently if you ask conservatives, there isn't really anything. We don't deserve anything. When parents impart that a girl's worth flows from God, and when girls are taught to respect themselves and their life-giving bodies, they will know that life is sacred and must be defended. Conservatives believe that we must be a voice for the voiceless, until you're born and then, well, you're on your own. Children are taught in school to protect animals and the environment. There are fines and jail sentences for disturbing bird nests and turtle eggs, or harming wolves, whales, and spotted owls. But when it comes to protecting babies with beating hearts for being hacked to pieces and sucked out with vacuums, liberals remain fiercely committed to keeping the practice legal and easy to obtain. Conservative daughters know that abortion is the taking of an innocent human life, plain and simple. It destroys a baby and damages women and their families. A strong, smart, conservative girl must learn to stand up and speak out for the rights of the unborn. She must defend those who cannot defend themselves. Try to imagine defending your right to use someone else's body for you to continue living. And yeah, I just can't imagine it. Maybe I'm weird, but I would much rather my parents chose to have me rather than being forced into it. Damage, regret, and the abortion lobby. A tsunami of money and propaganda is aimed at convincing young women that disposing of their babies in utero is not only a right, but completely normal and carefree. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that my guess is right, because she goes on to say, the big money pro-abortion industry sends its tidal wave of cash crashing into American public policy on the nation's girls with little regard for what abortion leaves in its wake. Abortions haunt women for the rest of their lives, and a botched abortion can destroy a young woman's ability to have children, which is why abortion should remain legal so that they can be safe. And as for abortion haunting a woman, I have no doubt that some women have an abortion when they do not want to have an abortion, but they feel they have no other choice. And that is why I advocate for things like a higher minimum wage, public health care, affordable housing, things like that, which is what helps people financially, because the only reason a woman should have an abortion is because she wants one, not because she needs to have one because she doesn't have the financial resources to take care of a child. And I don't know why I bother, but I was kind of hoping Michelle would, talk a bit about that in this chapter, but no, bootstraps, baby. Considerers do not wish these women harm, only grace. And parents can help their daughter understand the value of life in many positive ways. And she mentions Rachel Campos Duffy. Rachel has 8 beautiful children, and when she learned that her 9th child would have special needs, she still believed this baby was a gift from God. When her daughter Valentina was born, Rachel called her the sweetest, most perfect angel she had ever seen. There are many women who refuse to abort their children when others told them they should. I mean, you should never ever tell someone they should have an abortion. It is the pregnant woman's choice and her choice only. At the height of the Cold War, Pope John Paul II visited our nation's capital and shared the same reverence for life with America. I remember the Pope describing Westerners in the modern world as focused on creature comforts. It remains a relevant message. We want to give our children everything: clothes, cars, vacations, toys, the list goes on. But the greatest gift parents can give their children, he said, is siblings. Kind of funny coming from a man who will never have kids. If you have a brother or sister or multiple siblings, imagine going through life without them. Kids squabble over little things when they are young, but they are an amazing blessing to each other. The idea of robbing a child of these lifelong blood relationships through an abortion is so sad. Yet it happens every day, or actually every 97 seconds, at America's largest abortion provider, Planned Parenthood. If parents think pro-abortionists are going to sit idly while they teach their daughter to defend life, they should think again. Pro-abortion forces are as determined as they are extreme. No, Michelle, what's extreme is ambushing a doctor and then shooting him because he provides abortions. That is extreme. So Michelle goes on to talk about the Virginia bill, which, in her words, advocates for abortion after delivery. And she is straight up line here. I will leave a link to what the bill is actually about. It's talking about infants with serious conditions that will lead to death. This moral darkness is a kind of depravity no civilized nation can tolerate. No, I would say the moral darkness is forcefully keeping someone alive when they have no quality of life. The left's disregard for life is jaw-dropping, and the damage such policies causes women is incalculable. Abortion is the elimination of an innocent life, and its promotion creates a climate of violence in our society that many ignore. Ripping a baby from its mother limb by limb, or heaven forbid, the snuffing out of a life after birth, is nothing short of barbaric. No one is performing abortions after a baby is born. That would be called infanticide, and it's illegal. And why? Because the baby is inconvenient? She's really appealing to emotion and not logic. Did you know that sex-selective abortions, which typically targets unborn girls, why is that, Michelle? Is it because girls are valued less in our society? Are defended by the pro-abortion community? Parents might assume that since abortion on demand is a left-wing position and that feminism is also a left-wing phenomenon, it's a phenomenon, really? That aborting a baby simply because it's a girl would be soundly opposed. Not so. According to the pro-abortion Alan Guttmacher Institute, bans on sex-selective abortions place a burden on providers, and while disguised as a means to eliminate gender discrimination, anti-sex selective laws make abortion less accessible. Such depravity is senseless to those who value life. If you actually value life, Michelle, you would value it even after it's already been born, instead of thinking, well, it's been born, so now my part here is done. Of course, Michelle does disagree with the "it takes a village to raise a child" thing, but apparently it's okay to use the village to force a child to be born, so. Teaching the sanctity of life. No matter how much money and influence the abortion lobby has, apparently not much considering what's going on right now, the fact that taking an innocent life is it cannot change the fact that taking an innocent life is morally wrong. Still, killing babies is a big business. As we've seen, pro-abortion forces spend lavishly on political campaigns and legislative agendas. They also play word games such as calling abortion women's health care. It is women's health care, Michelle. You've given birth. You could die. It is health care. You know this, but you're choosing to ignore it to further your agenda. And they employ politically correct language to pander to social justice groups by claiming that legal restrictions on abortion is discrimination against women or a tool of oppression against minorities. Parents must teach their daughters the truth. Parents can also take heart that younger generations are increasingly sensitive to human rights, and people cannot embrace human rights and abortion at the same time. The two are incompatible. No, they're you can't force someone to gestate another person. Just like you can't force someone to donate blood or an organ. One of the reasons the pro-abortion side refuses to call an unborn child a baby is because they can't conceive the moral absolute that every human being has a right to life. That's why they rephrase abortion as reproductive health, as if pro-lifers are standing in the way of basic health care. Well, I mean, if you're voting for people who are against public health care, then you are actually standing in the way of basic health care. Claiming an unborn child is not a human life also goes against science. Make sure your daughter understands that. Liberals act as if they have a monopoly on science. Well, and that pro-lifers are backwards Bible thumpers. Explaining the scientific facts will help your daughter differentiate good information from bad. For example, human life does not begin at birth or late-stage pregnancy. It begins when a male sperm cell penetrates a female ovum and a zygote is created. A zygote is the first cell formed at the miracle of conception and is the earliest developmental stage of the human embryo. Again, a natural biological process is not a miracle, but at least we now know the answer, that Michelle believes human life begins at conception. So how does she explain miscarriages then? A zygote has unique genetic composition that is totally distinct from its mother. DNA unique from anyone else in human history. This is a crucial point for the battlefield of ideas because a leading pro-abortion argument is that a baby is not an independent person, but a part of the mother. From there, it's a short jump to justifying an abortion. But it is. A fetus is literally attached to the mother through a cord, which it receives nutrients. Otherwise, it would not survive. But an embryo is a human being, not just a clump of cells. An unborn baby's heart begins beating very early during pregnancy. That is not a heart. That is just the part that will become the heart. And they can survive outside the mother. Well, wait, but she just said that the baby is not an independent person, but a part of the mother. But she just admits that they cannot survive outside of the mother and eventually thrive at just 22 weeks of gestation. So there's still 22 weeks where you do need another person to sustain your life. Life is sustainable by pregnancy's second trimester, and it has been demonstratively proven that unborn babies feel pain. I find it interesting that she chooses to link, sources about Planned Parenthood's financial dealings and all that, but she does not source unborn babies feel pain. Interesting choice. And she should be glad to know then that 92% of abortions are performed in the first trimester, and most done after that are because of fetal abnormality or maternal health. In addition to ethical and scientific considerations, parents can help their daughter uphold the sanctity of life by dispelling common myths. For example, pro-life supporters are often accused of hypocrisy if they support the death penalty. Well, yeah. How can you claim to be pro-life and support the death penalty? You don't believe all life matters, you're a hypocrite. But the difference is clear. An unborn baby is an innocent human being, a convicted murderer is not. Unless, of course, they were wrongly convicted. The same goes for the military. U.S. armed forces attack those who wish to attack America and Americans. Defending innocent life is the opposite of murder. Don't let your girl fall for the left's lazy logic. Yeah, except for when we attack simply to protect our own interests and not because someone is posing a threat to us. And also, what about civilians who get caught up in those attacks? I mean, this is just remarkable to me. I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was this bad. I mean, she is literally willing to say that everything the U.S. does is good and for the good of the world and never to promote our own selfish interests. And also, if someone has been a convicted murderer, well, even if they weren't actually the murderer, I guess it's just their own damn fault. Nope, Michelle is always right, and anyone who disagrees with her is always wrong. There are volumes of philosophical and religious literature dedicated to these arguments, but to offer an example, Osama bin Laden was not an innocent human being. Neither were Adolf Hitler and Ted Bundy. They made horrific choices that warranted justice. An unborn child, however, has committed no crime or terrorist act. Babies never declared war against our country, rather parts of our country declared war against babies. As President Reagan once put it, I've noticed that everyone who is for abortion has already been born. Ask your daughter if it's acceptable to allow a defenseless person to be harmed. Then ask about babies in the womb. When parents explain the fundamental problems with abortions, their daughters will know right from wrong. I'm still waiting for her to answer my question, but we're still going through this chapter, so maybe she will. Google and Miseducation. Parents cannot rely on far-left tech companies like Google or the public education system to teach girls the conservative side of controversial issues, especially abortion. The media and internet giants weight the scales in favor of the pro-abortion side much more heavily than you may realize. Google is the gateway to the internet. About 90% of all internet searches in the United States run through Google, which deliberately ranks certain news and information while suppressing other sources and views. Google once ranked results in a content-neutral way, relying on popularity and credibility among other internet users. But in the recent past, Google decided to rank information based on political content. Web pages that don't support the narrative Google wants to advance disappear. Information that was once readily accessible is increasingly difficult to find. Guess which side pro-life websites fall on. Here's a quick experiment. Try to search for the number of aborted babies since the Roe v. Wade decision in 1973. Simply Googling it will get you the number, but will also likely turn up pro-choice articles and sketchy fact checks undermining the figures. When looking for quality research material, encourage your daughter to visit pro-life websites. Oh, yeah. Because you don't want a viewpoint outside of your own. Liberals have the luxury of relying on the news media and public school systems to make their case. We were never taught about abortion when I was in school. But conservative parents have to teach their daughters to defend life on their own. Conservatives have to know their arguments inside and out and have the courage to stand up and speak out. That can be challenging, but it's also empowering. Arm your daughter with pro-life arguments. Years ago, when I was in law school at American University, a group of activist girls cornered me in the ladies' room. They put me on the spot about abortion. It's something girls did then, and I'm certain it's worse now. So that has never happened to me, but in the comments, please let me know if you've ever been cornered by activists in a bathroom. I mean, I do find activists standing outside like the grocery store, but they're usually not talking about abortion or things like that, but about the minimum wage, rent control, things like that. Their objective wasn't to persuade me, but to bully me into changing my position. But I didn't back down. I had been raised to fight and I knew my arguments. I held my ground and they eventually withdrew one by one. It was a confidence-building experience I have never forgotten. Girls should take a similar approach to handling political bullies. They should learn to confront ideologues with tenacity and grace. And it doesn't take that much in the way of facts to be successful. As conservative loose speaker Babe Buchanan likes to say, if a conservative girl knows 5 key facts on a social issue and can explain herself, she can usually beat a liberal student in a debate because leftist kids generally only know 1 or 2. So essentially, in Michelle's mind, the left/liberal/whoever is just raising an army of little, clones who don't think for themselves. They're told, 1 or 2 facts and sent on their way, and they just believe it without questioning it? Okay. For example, when someone claims that a woman has the right to do whatever she wants with her body, your daughter can explain that an unborn baby is a totally separate body. It just stays within the mother, but it's not her property. It's a person. That's why we ask pregnant women if they are having a boy or a girl, not how's your fetus. We also tell pregnant mothers baby showers, not fetus showers. Oh boy. Okay, so yes, a fetus is a totally separate person. However, it is literally connected to the woman by a cord through which it receives what it needs to sustain its own life. That is why it's up to a woman if it stays there or not. If a woman decides she does not want to sustain someone else's life, abortion. If she decides she does, well, that is ordinarily a cause for, celebration and the baby shower she mentions and the questions about having a boy or a girl. And on that note, if she decides that she does not want it, but she's going to do adoption instead of abortion, people usually will not throw her a shower or ask her questions about it unless, of course, they are total strangers who don't know her situation. Abortion supporters are terrified of 4D ultrasound images because they remove all doubt that a child in the mother is virtually the same as a child outside of the mother. Incorrect. Even small children understand this when they see modern prenatal pictures. There is nowhere for abortionists to go, rhetorically speaking, other than just claim a right to kill a baby. That's not something they want to admit. No, you shouldn't kill babies, but abortions are still fine. Probably because babies and fetuses, especially embryos, are not the same thing. Finally, to the a woman can do whatever she wants with her own body argument, didn't we already cover this one? Your daughter should be prepared to point out that many U.S. laws rightfully restrict humans from doing whatever they want with their own body. For example, it's illegal to use your body to kill an innocent person. It's also illegal in most places in the U.S. to use your body to make money through prostitution, selling narcotics, or robbing a bank. The point is that the law places limits on what a person can do with her body all the time and for good reason. Interesting. I thought conservatives loved freedom. Another argument is that pro-life protections will lead to back alley or coat hanger abortions. The reality, of course, is that many abortion claims are themselves a threat to a woman's health, and certainly the life and health of the baby. In the quest to make the practice as accessible as possible, the pro-choice lobby often resists imposing even elementary medical safety standards. According to the pro-life Susan B. Anthony list, abortion clinics across the country fail health inspections and harm women every year. The organization notes that violent conditions are endemic to the abortion industry as a whole. So her argument is that abortion clinics are already horrible, unsafe, unsanitary places for women, and that is why it's okay for abortion to be illegal. So, editing kit jumping in with my bad microphone to say that it's because abortion is legal that we have inspections of abortion clinics so they can be shut down when they're not meeting standards. If abortion became illegal, then those bad clinics would still be operating with no oversight. The pro-choice lobby would be lobbying for, choice. They would not be putting conditions on medical clinics. Those who defend life are also accused of resigning women to poverty since their lives would be interrupted by keeping a child they don't want. But that's not true either. There are many counseling and support services for women who struggle, and there are huge numbers of people who would happily adopt and care for a mother's unwanted child. It's false to say a woman must live in misery or abort her baby. Make sure your daughter understands this and remember that churches, civic organizations, and good people all over the country are interested in helping struggling moms no matter where they fall on the economic ladder. I really enjoy how conservatives, really want that extremely thin, basically threadbare social safety net, and then they say that's enough. No, it is not enough. And if you were really pro-life as you claim, you would want more. You would never want someone to feel they have to have an abortion because of financial reasons. Of course, they don't believe that women have abortions for financial reasons. They always think it's for convenience. So I guess that makes it easy for them to assuage their conscience, even if their conscience even feels a twinge. I do think this is why conservatives always harp on the abortions just for convenience thing, because then if confronted with the reality that most abortions are done because of financial reasons, then they would have to admit that the policies they advocate for help drive abortion rates up. Arresting women and throwing them in jail for having an abortion is another favorite strawman argument that's meant to portray legal restrictions on abortions as scary and cruel. In reality, no serious person wants to put a woman in jail for an abortion. First, if a woman has one where it's legal, then putting her behind bars is an impossibility. No laws would be broken. But that clear logic may not register in an emotionalized debate. Your daughter should be prepared to knock down the left's hollow arguments so she can defend and protect the rights of unborn babies. So, obviously when you're having this discussion, people will be talking about what would happen if it became illegal. So this paragraph is kind of stupid, but I have noticed that they always do shy away from saying they would punish women for an abortion. They would punish the doctor, and now in Texas they would punish pretty much anyone else except the woman. The trickiest point your daughter is likely to encounter is that pregnancy should be terminated in cases of incest and rape. Pro-abortion advocates use this argument to make pro-life advocates seem radical and insensitive. It's also used as a foot-in-the-door argument where conceding abortions on this issue opens the door for further concessions. I realize this may seem controversial, but one act of violence does not justify another act of violence. Perpetrators of rape or incest should be held accountable to the full extent of the law, period. But ripping a baby apart limb by limb from its mother will only compound the tragedy. Does she know what a first trimester abortion looks like? Because that is not this. Research shows that many women experience psychological trauma, flashbacks, and PTSD long after they abort their babies. Adding that pain to an already horrific situation is not necessary. Someone else can care for the child if need be. But that's not a solution to pregnancy. She would still have to be pregnant and carry her rapist baby for 9 months. You should let the woman decide if she's mentally and emotionally able to do that and not make the choice for her. Thankfully, these situations are few and far between. Indeed, according to the Centers for Disease Control, rape-related pregnancies are a tiny fraction of pregnancies in the United States. Really, the pro-abortionists are just trying to create a huge anti-life loophole where anyone can get an abortion by claiming a rape. So her excuse is that it doesn't happen that often, so it's okay? No. The privilege of these people is just astounding. Has it ever occurred to her that many rapes go unreported, and that's why it seems like a tiny fraction? Finally, under no circumstances should taxpayer money ever pay for abortions, whether at home or abroad. I'm sorry, don't we give a ton of money to Israel? And doesn't Israel allow abortions? Okay. If your daughter is confronted about abortion as a form of healthcare, or perhaps a craven form of population control, and that taxpayer resources should subsidize such health services, she can argue that abortion is the taking of an innocent life. No taxpayer should ever have to pay for that. It's morally offensive. And it directly defies the pro-abortion claim of being pro-choice. And yet, taxpayers pay to bomb civilians? And this is why I don't say pro-life, I say anti-choice. Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is the tip of the spear for the pro-abortion lobby. It's flush with funding, consists of more than 600 clinics around the country, and is aggressively political. It enjoys the support of powerful donors and politicians, and the establishment media are quick to deflect controversy while amplifying its messaging. All of that, combined with campus feminism, is aimed at your daughter. But parents need only show the origins of the organization and how its mission continues to this day to undermine Planned Parenthood's misinformation. Planned Parenthood comes from the early 20th century eugenics movement. Its founder, Margaret Sanger, was a known racist and eugenicist. She was also a die-hard liberal who believed that sterilizing the feeble-minded and promoting birth control would stem the rising stream of the unfit. In a rare moment of honesty for the pro-abortion movement, amid the 2020 racial unrest in America, Planned Parenthood of Greater New York announced its intent to remove Margaret Sanger's name from its building due to her harmful connections to the eugenics movement. These are facts that the left tries to sweep under the rug. It's also just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the organization's disturbing past. I obviously do not agree with Margaret Sanger and what she stood for, but Planned Parenthood as a whole is a good thing. Teach your daughter the truth. It may be helpful to introduce sources of authority like Alveda King. Alveda is a pro-life activist and niece of the civil rights icon Martin Luther King Jr. She considers Planned Parenthood one of the most racist organizations in our nation's history and abortion the civil rights issue of our time. For all the less preening about social justice and institutional racism, it goes oddly silent when pro-lifers turn the rhetorical tables on Planned Parenthood by asking about the racial and racist roots of the pro-abortion movement. I really don't know what they expect here. I mean, obviously, Margaret Sanger was wrong, but women should still have choice over what happens to their bodies. Parents can also show their daughter about how to disentangle the main talking points of the largest abortion provider, that abortions account for only 3% of Planned Parenthood's procedures. But this is a classic case of sleight of hand. If a woman receives an ultrasound, pre-abortive counseling, and abortion and a condom on her way out of the Planned Parenthood facility, then the abortion is recorded as 25% of the services provided. In reality, the entire affair was abortion-related. To which I say, so? They still do a lot of good. It's worth noting that all the additional services that Planned Parenthood offers in the way of women's health can be obtained elsewhere. Mammograms, cancer screenings, pregnancy tests, disease testing, and other services aren't unique. In fact, they are a staple of pro-life pregnancy resource centers, often free of charge. Avoiding trouble. As the saying goes, the best defense is a strong offense. When it comes to parenting, that means knowing where your girl is and who she's with as much as possible. Parents should know their daughter's friends and the boys she's around, and they cannot be afraid to be restrictive. As my grandmother used to say, who are their people and do they share our values? Staying on top of your daughter's social life may seem intrusive, but it conditions her choices for when she's old enough to leave home. At that point, parents have little control. It's no secret that teenagers rebel. Girls might tell their parents that they are going to spend the night at a friend's house while secretly making other plans. We know because many of us did the same things. But just as our parents understood, the risks of allowing your child to spend unsupervised time with boys you don't know are not worth it. Girls and boys have different ideas about love, affection, and sexual gratification. That's never going to change. Women tend to fall in love, and they want to please the men they fall in love with. Most young men generally want to enjoy sex and move on. An unwanted pregnancy is a perennial concern, but the risks are heightened in today's hookup culture. So call ahead. Talk to the parents of your daughter's friend and make sure everything checks out. Your daughter might get upset, she might roll her eyes. It doesn't matter. Parents must take these kinds of precautions to protect their children. Talk to your daughter about avoiding trouble. Mature conversations can take many forms. My father told me when I was an adolescent that there are girls who do and girls who don't, and he said I had to decide which kind of girl I wanted to be. I knew exactly what he meant. And that extremely cryptic sentence was a mature conversation? Okay. It was never a difficult decision, and church, family, school, and other time-consuming activities certainly helped. Filling your daughter's life with positive influences, knowing the people she's spending time with, and leaving little room for trouble in her day-to-day life is a recipe for success. Another path is abstinence. It may sound old-fashioned, but abstinence is a surefire way to avoid pregnancy and disease. Teach your daughter to set high standards for herself and her body. Keep close tabs on her, beginning around 12 or 13 years old so that she's used to it when she's 16, 17, and 18. I don't know why, but that sounds kind of weird. There is a notion that conservatives are just pro-birth, that we don't care about the child once it's born. Saving a life is a great place to start, but the truth is that conservatives are for both. Saving the life and helping the mother and baby after it's born. Okay, how? If your daughter does get pregnant, the conservative response should be unconditional love, not rejection. She will have made a life-changing choice and the gravity won't be lost on her. Care for her. Exercise forgiveness and grace. It's not the end of the world, but the road ahead will be difficult. Whatever happens, do not allow the situation to be made worse by an abortion. Okay, but it's really not a parent's choice if their daughter gets an abortion. I mean, I guess depending on where you are, the law might say otherwise, but really, parents should not decide that for their daughter. The additional trauma isn't worth it. It's a mistake that lasts forever. There are many options available to support young women and their children. Definitely not because of you and your conservative friends, Michelle. Adoption, family, and other avenues for defending life are plentiful. She will not be alone, and neither will you. Life is too precious, and every challenge, big or small, is an opportunity to live our values. Wait, what? That's it? Well, so really the only thing you have to worry about if you're a pro-life conservative is if your daughter gets pregnant, You have to support her, but don't worry about anyone else. Okay, defend life and celebrate life with others. Abortion is morally wrong, and no amount of money or political campaigning is going to change that fact. Conservative parents can help their daughters understand the merits of the issue and prepare them for debates. They can also introduce their daughters to other girls who share the same passion for protecting the unborn. There is tremendous power in communities of like-minded people, and empowerment is just one of the many blessings in the conservative pro-life movement. She talks about the March for Life. Unlike the pink hat-wearing feminists who populate the Women's March, participants aren't protesting anything. They gather to celebrate life, and that includes babies in the womb. Your daughter could benefit immensely from joining positive, inspiring, and peaceful rallies like the March for Life. She may also benefit from groups like Students for Life, a nonprofit organization offering pro-life activities and resources on college campuses around the country. Movie events for films like Unplanned, a powerful pro-life feature film, can also carry the message among faith-based and conservative youth groups. Abortion is a horrid practice, but equipping your daughter with pro-life facts and information will empower her to become a voice for the voiceless. It's pretty much as I thought. It's all about stopping abortion and not asking why abortions happen and trying to remedy the reason for it. It's just about making it illegal so it's harder to obtain. I don't know why, but I am just so disappointed, even though I expected nothing less. But I'm still waiting for a pro-lifer to show that they're actually pro-life and not just pro-shame, essentially. At least we're done with that. The next chapter is think about managing money, and we're over halfway through now, so almost done. So disappointing. I keep waiting to be surprised by a conservative, and so far they just keep disappointing me and saying the same old thing they've always been saying, so I don't know why I'm still disappointed, but there you are. I guess I'm an optimist. Anyway, that's it for me. I will see you in the next chapter 2 weeks from now. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and yeah,